Hello everyone, in the current session we will be discussing about drugs for peripheral vascular disease PVD. Coming to peripheral vascular disease, it is a slow and progressive circulatory disorder caused by narrowing, blockade or spasm in blood vessel outside the heart and brain. And reduction in blood flow leads to reduction in the oxygen supply and it often leads to necrosis. Coming to the causes, the PVD is mainly caused by atherosclerosis, embolism, thrombus, trauma, vasospasm, inflammation, diabetic vascular insufficiency, ischemic leg ulcers, and also due to cerebrovascular inadequacy. Coming to the risk factors for acquiring PVD are family history, sedentary lifestyle, stress, autoimmune disorders, smoking, obesity, and hypertension. These are some of the risk factors. Coming to the pathophysiology, usually the risk factors may lead to increased blood cholesterol levels, and this leads to plaque formation in intimal wall causing partial or complete occlusion or blockade. This leads to calcification and loss of elasticity of that particular blood vessel, weakening the wall, leading to aneurysms or thrombus formation. And this finally results in inadequate blood supply and oxygen supply. Coming to some of the peripheral vascular diseases. The first one is thromboangiitis obliterans. It is also known as Buerger disease. Is a recurring progressive inflammation and thrombosis of small and medium arteries and veins on the hands and on feet. It is a progressive inflammation and thrombosis of small and medium arteries and veins on the heart and feet. And the next example is Raynaud's disease. It is caused when some areas of your body, such as fingers and toes, they feel numb and cold in response to cold temperatures or stress. Basically, in Raynaud's disease, smaller arteries that supply blood to your skin, they become narrow, limiting the blood flow to the affected areas, which is often due to vasospasm. The other one is aneurysm. Aneurysm also leads to peripheral vascular disease. Aneurysm is nothing but an abnormal bulge or ballooning of the wall of a blood vessel. The next one is arterial embolism. It is a sudden interruption of blood flow to an organ or body part due to an embolus adhering to the wall of an artery, blocking the blood flow. The next one is deep venous thrombosis. It is the formation of blood clot or thrombus in a deep vein, mostly in the legs and pelvis. These are some of the examples of peripheral vascular diseases. Now, coming to the drugs used for peripheral vascular diseases. They are of following types. The first one is rheological agent. It is pentoxifylline. It is also called as oxpentyphylline. The next one is PDE, phosphodiesterase 3 inhibitor. Example is cilostazol. The next are antiplatelet drugs. Example are aspirin, clopidogrel, and ticlopidine. The next one is antioxidant, which is vitamin E. And finally, vasodilators. They are again subcategorized as direct acting vasodilators like cyclopentolate and xanthanol nicotinate. The next one is beta adrenergic agonist, isoxsuprine. The next is alpha adrenergic blockers like prazosin and phenoxybenzamine. The next are calcium channel blockers. Example is nifedipine and felodipine. And finally, prostacyclin, which is a prostaglandin I2. Coming to the drugs, the first one is pentoxifylline. It is an analog of theophylline. It is a weak phosphodiesterase inhibitor. It increases the blood flow in ischemic areas by reducing the whole blood viscosity and by improving the flexibility of RBCs. The rheological action rather than the vasodilation often leads to improved blood flow. The side effects are nausea, vomiting, indigestion, and bloating, which is reduced by taking medicine after meals. The other are it might lead to angina, palpitations, hypersensitivity, and arrhythmias. Coming to the uses, pentoxifylline is used to treat intermittent claudication due to occlusive vascular disease. It is also found useful in treating tropic leg ulcers, chronic cerebrovascular insufficiency, and transient ischemic attacks. Coming to the mechanism of action, it is a competitive non-selective PDE inhibitor. It raises the intracellular cyclic AMP, activates the pKa, inhibits tumor necrosis factor and leukotriene synthesis. And this reduces the inflammation, improves the RBC elasticity and reduces the blood viscosity. And finally decreases the potential for platelet aggregation and clot formation. Coming to the next drug, it is cilostazol. The mechanism of action is, it is specifically PDE3 inhibitor, phosphodiesterase 3 inhibitor. It increases the cyclic AMP in platelets and vascular smooth muscle, results in anti-aggregatory and vasodilator effects. It is more effective than pentoxifylline in patients with intermittent claudication. Coming to the pharmacokinetics, its elimination half-life is 12 hours. It should not be taken with CYP3A4 and CYP2C19 inhibitors. And it is not to use in patients with heart failure, tissue necrosis, and who have pain even at rest. Coming to the side effects are headache, palpitations, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting. It also increases the ventricular ectopics and non-sustained ventricular tachycardia. The uses are, it is used for intermittent claudication due to occlusive vascular disease in patients with no rest pain and heart failure. The patient should not have pain at rest and they should not have heart failure. For them only it is used to treat the intermittent claudication. Now coming to antiplatelet drugs. Usually the platelet activation and subsequent thrombosis is triggered by compounds such as collagen and thrombin at the sites of vessel wall injury. And the platelets also synthesize thromboxane A. The platelets, they synthesize thromboxane A2 and secrete serotonin and ADP from their granules. The platelets, they synthesize thromboxane A2 and they secrete ADP and serotonin from their granules. These molecules further stimulate the activation of platelets. With activation, the platelet glycoprotein 2B and 3A complex undergoes conformational changes that it allows to function as a receptor for micromolecules like fibrinogen and fibronectin. This undergoes conformational changes and allows or gets converted into a receptor for macromolecules like fibrinogen and fibronectin. And this leads to the aggregation of platelets. This is the general mechanism of platelet activation and aggregation. Now, additionally, let us discuss the pathways of platelet activation and inhibition within platelets and vascular endothelium. Within platelets, the arachidonic acid, which is released from the membrane phospholipid and is ultimately converted to thromboxane A2, a potent platelet activator and a vasoconstrictor. But within endothelium, a counter-regulatory pathway leads to generation of prostaglandins G2 and H2 or prostaglandins PGI2, and this increases the cyclic AMP level and results in the platelet inhibition. So this is the general mechanism in platelets, and this is the inhibitory mechanism in endothelium. In case of vascular endothelium, a counter-regulatory pathway leads to generation of prostaglandins, which increase the cyclic AMP and results in the platelet inhibition. This is a protective action. Now, coming to the antiplatelet drugs. The first one is aspirin. Mechanism of action is it irreversibly inhibits platelet prostaglandin synthase. Uses are it is used for intermittent claudication. Coming to the side effects, they are upper GI burning, abdominal pain, heartburn, nausea and constipation. The next drug is ticlopidine. It inhibits the binding of macromolecules to glycoprotein 2B and 3A complex during the aggregation. The uses are intermittent claudication along with aspirin, and it also used in the reduction of adverse cardiovascular events. Side effects are diarrhea, nausea, rash, bleeding, neutropenia and thrombocytopenia. The next drug is clopidogrel. It prevents the binding of adenosine 5-phosphate molecule to P2Y12 receptor on the platelet surface. It acts as a P2Y12 receptor antagonist and inhibits the platelet activation and aggregation. The uses are it is used in patients with symptomatic peripheral artery disease, and it reduces the risk of myocardial infarction in patients with non-STEMI and STMI. That is nothing but ST segment elevated myocardial infarction. Coming to the side effects, they are shortness of breath, bleeding, headache, seizures, weakness and jaundice. Now coming to the next category, antioxidant vitamin E. It is a lipid-soluble antioxidant and it terminates the oxidative chain reaction by interacting with the free radicals. It prevents the formation of free radical. Usually the cell damage that occurs in the ischemic periods in all tissues is probably caused by free radicals. And since vitamin E prevents the formation of free radicals, it is used as an additional drug. And in addition to its antioxidant properties, vitamin E has also been found to inhibit the platelet aggregation, lower the blood cholesterol levels, and stimulate the formation of collateral vessels. These are some of the other additional mechanisms for using vitamin E in the peripheral vascular disease. Now, coming to vasodilators. No vasodilator alone can overcome the organic obstruction. They are more useful when vasospasm is wholly or partly involved, as in Raynaud's disease. Coming to the vasodilators, they are first drug is cyclandylate. The mechanism of action is it is a peripheral vasodilator and smooth muscle relaxant, and it increases the blood flow. The uses are used for intermittent claudication, atherosclerosis and Raynaud's disease. Side effects are flushing, palpitations, headache, GI distress and tachycardia. The next drug is xanthinol nicotinate. It increases the blood flow in many vascular beds and increases the glucose metabolism and energy gain. The uses are peripheral vascular disease, cerebrovascular disorders and hyperlipidemia. Side effects are irregular heart rate, flushing, headache and gastrointestinal distress. The next one is beta-2 agonist, isoxupine. It is a direct mechanism of action is it has direct relaxant effect on uterine and vascular smooth muscles via beta-2 receptors. The uses are used for cerebrovascular insufficiency, thromboangiitis obliterans, Raynaud's disease and atherosclerosis. The side effects are rashes, nausea and vomiting, hypotension and dizziness. Coming to the next one, prazosin. It inhibits the postsynaptic alpha-1 adrenoreceptors, alpha-1 receptor antagonist. It inhibits the postsynaptic alpha-1 adrenoreceptors, blocks the vasoconstriction effect of the catecholamines on vessels, and this leads to peripheral blood vessel dilation. The uses are: Prazosin is used for hypertension, post-traumatic stress disorders, and for Raynaud's disease. Side effects are palpitations, headache, nausea and vomiting, and weakness. The next drug is phenoxybenzamine. It is a non-selective, irreversible alpha blocker. It leads to muscle relaxation. Uses are PVD and hypertension. Side effects are reflex tachycardia, flushing, and GI distress. Finally, calcium channel blockers, nifedipine or felodipine. They block the voltage-gated L-type calcium channels in vascular smooth muscles and myocardial cells. They prevent the calcium ion entry and reduce the peripheral artery vascular resistance. Uses are for PVD, angina and hypertension. The side effects are hypotension, palpitations, flushing, ankle edema and headache. Finally, coming to prostaglandins, PGI2. The mechanism of action is it increases the cyclic AMP and inhibits the platelet aggregation, and it is an effective vasodilator. Uses are it is used for pulmonary arterial hypertension. Side effects are irreversible hypotension, platelet loss, flushing and headache. Now, this is the mechanism of action. The PGI2 acts on the receptor and it leads to activation of adenyl cyclase. This increases the cyclic AMP and this leads to activation of PK, protein kinase A, and this results in relaxation of smooth muscle, reduced cell proliferation and inhibition of platelet aggregation. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for further videos on pharmacology and other related pharmaceutical sciences.